Lu Fangxi returned from inspecting the 6 provinces of Jiangnan, refused the emperor's reward, and insisted on using the merits of this trip to exonerate the #1 talented woman, Shi Yuzi. On the day Shi Yuzi entered the residence, I was forced to sign the divorce papers. But later, at the 4 Nations banquet, I became famous throughout the world with Song of the East Wind. Upon hearing the music, he seemed to realize something, filled with regret, and declared in front of everyone that I was the only wife of his life. Lu Fangxi had been ordered half a year ago to inspect the 6 provinces of Jiangnan and investigate the SALT official's corruption case. Wherever he went, he made swift and decisive judgments, using thunderous methods to root out the nation's parasites, accomplishing great merit. Upon his return, His Majesty bestowed countless rewards. Yet he, in front of all the court officials, knelt down and bowed, willing to exchange all the rewards for His Majesty's pardon of one person, and that person was Shi Yuzi, once the most renowned, talented woman in the world. Later implicated when her clan members committed crimes, convicted and demoted to serve as a slave in the Yuding Bureau. When the news came, everyone in the entire household looked at me with particularly complicated gazes. Some showed sympathy, others had mockery in their eyes. In the end, I couldn't remain invisible in their dramatic story. His Majesty granted Lu Fangxi's request, and everyone knew what I would have to face next. When he brought Shi Yuji back, he ordered the servants and maids of the manor to welcome her. Under everyone's gaze, he helped Shi Yuji down from the carriage, his eyes filled with a smile, treating her like a treasure, showing everyone his regard for her, and more importantly, declaring her status to all in the manor. The years of hardship in the Yuding Bureau had not worn away her grace and elegance when she stepped down from the carriage. It was as if I saw once again that woman who had amazed the world back then. The 2 of them stood side by side, like a perfect couple, while I stood not far away, looking so out of place. Only now did he tell me that there was someone hidden in his heart, someone he could never forget. When she walked up to me, she nodded slightly and said only, "It has been years since we last met. Miss Jiang is as graceful as ever, but I never expected our reunion would be under such circumstances." With her intelligence, there is no way she couldn't have anticipated this. The audacity of this mistress showing up like, "It has been years," while standing in the main wife's home. Then Zhang Tanyin, calm as ice, corrects her, "Since I am already married, Miss C should address me as Madame Lu." That one line devastating. It wasn't anger, it was a boundary. She refused to let this woman erase her legal status even while being humiliated. That is not pettiness, that is dignity under fire. The way Lu Fangxi immediately blamed her for not being gracious to his mistress, chef's kiss of trash behavior. I raised my eyes to look at her and said calmly, "Since I am already married, Miss Shi should address me as Madame Lu." As my words fell, her gaze dimmed slightly with loneliness, and she turned to look at Lu Fangxi. A hint of pity flashed in Lu Fangxi's eyes, but when he looked at me, his eyes were full of disgust and blame. He was blaming me. When had his eyes ever held a place for me, his lawfully wedded wife? He led Shi Yuzi into the residence, warning those maids and servants to serve her carefully. Everyone understood his underlying meaning, while I stood there, left with nothing but embarrassment. At dusk, Shi Yuzi came to see me, but gone was the gentle demeanor from earlier in the day. Replaced by a sharper edge, she came through the corridor, brushing past flowers and willows, having changed into different attire, returning to the splendid style of the Shi family's former glory days. This fine moonlight brocade had been prepared by Lu Fangxi long ago. She surveyed the furnishings in my courtyard, seemingly filled with emotion, her brows raised slightly, a hint of mockery appearing on her face, as she spoke unkindly. "If not for that disaster, the one living in this courtyard should be me. The one who became Madame Lu through proper marriage should also be me. Where would there be any place for you?" Looking at her speaking so matter-of-factly now, I only found it laughable. Years of tempering in the Yuding Bureau had ultimately changed her nature. Did the most celebrated talented woman in the world truly ever regard Lu Fangxi, a man of humble origins, with any respect? Have you told so many false and insincere lies that you've even convinced yourself? My bluntness pierced through her pretense, causing a hint of anger to surface on her face. Back then, she was arrogant beyond measure, proud of her talents. She never even deigned to notice those young masters from noble families, let alone Lu Fangxi. During a gathering among the ladies, she had mentioned that a poor scholar who came to the capital for the imperial examination had heard her play the chin somewhere and regarded her as a kindred spirit, even writing poems to present to her. But when she brought it up back then, her face was full of teasing and jest. laughing that the man had studied himself silly, a ridiculous fool, and his repeated pestering annoyed her. At the time, everyone just laughed it off and let it pass, never expecting that the foolish scholar Shi Yuzi spoke of was Lu Fangqi. After a long pause, she slightly lowered her brows and said with great certainty, "So what? It is enough that he believed it." And Lu Fangqi did believe it, believed that Shi Yuzi had feelings for him. When Lu Fangqi placed the divorce papers before me, I wasn't surprised, only heartbroken. People spend their whole lives chasing what they couldn't have in their youth. Xi Yuzi was exactly that kind of existence to Lu Fangqi. All the amazement and obsession from his youth were concentrated in her alone. Times had changed. He was no longer that impoverished and desolate poor scholar, but now held the position of Shangshu Ling. And Shi Yuzi was no longer that unattainable noble flower from a prestigious family. Instead, she needed his salvation and would depend on him for the rest of her life. Now, with great power in his hands, he was making up for the regrets of his youth, fulfilling his old obsession. But he had forgotten the path he came from. Jiang Tanyin, let's divorce. Yuzi suffered greatly in the Yuding Bureau, and her longing for me is what kept her going until today. I can't let her down. As long as you remain for a day, her status will be awkward for a day. The words Lu Fangqi spoke were so cold. This marriage followed our parents' orders and the matchmaker's words, and you were the one who came to propose in person. Why didn't you mention your earth-shattering love back then? At that time, you were just a budding scholar from a humble family. My father didn't look down on your lowly status, but instead admired your talents and supported you greatly. Now that you've risen to a high position, you talk about not letting her down. But what about me? I only felt a chill rising from my heart, yet all I saw in his eyes was impatience. Now, he holds a high position, while my father has already passed away from illness. The Jiang family is of no use to him anymore. I suppose that is why he can turn against me without any scruples. He took a step closer to me, his eyes filled with coldness. Don't bring up the past. I am sick of those days of being oppressed and looked down upon. Over the years, I've carefully planned every step to reach this high position, for myself, and for Yuzi. As for you, you were just a stepping stone. He finally stopped pretending. I let out a scornful laugh, my emotions surging. How pitiful that my father praised your outstanding talent and your proud backbone despite your humble origins. I never expected you to be nothing but a scheming person, ungrateful and heartless. I believed I had fulfilled all my duties, as a wife managing the household, handling daily affairs, attending to the elders. This divorce paper is to leave you some dignity, and also to show gratitude for the Jiang family's support. If you don't know what is good for you, your brother who just entered the court will surely face a difficult career ahead. As he said this, his expression was stern, his tone filled with chilling coldness. I suddenly looked up, barely maintaining my composure. You are using his future to threaten me. The corners of his lips curved into an inscrutable arc as he said lightly, perhaps not just his future. His words drifted away with the wind, and I had already heard the cold ruthlessness in them. Standing side by side with him under the chuanghua tree, a long wind rose. I was lost in thought for a moment, then said, why must it come to this? Having met the wrong person, why would I cling on? From the moment he pleaded before all the court officials for his majesty to pardon Shi Yuzi, I knew this day would come. Everything I brought from the Lu family, I will take back with me. The moment I said it, I actually felt somewhat relieved. Fine, he agreed eagerly. The businesses I've managed, those property deeds and land deeds, I am taking half of them too. From now on, you are not allowed to make things difficult for Zhang Chen in court either. After a moment of silence, he nodded in agreement. To clear the way for Shi Yuzi, he naturally wouldn't quibble over such trivial matters. Night had fallen, but the main courtyard was brightly lit. They were all busy packing things up and organizing them into records. After I married him, it was when his career was going smoothly. He was busy with official duties all day, while I had to manage household affairs for him and deal with social obligations from all sides. As time went on, I only remembered how to be a proper supportive wife, and forgot the interests of my youth. But such devotion was ultimately not worth it. After a sleepless night, I finally sorted everything out at dawn and handed the matching tokens and keys to the butler. The butler's eyes were full of difficulty, and I only whispered, soon, there will be a new mistress to take over. I wasn't the only one who had a restless night, perhaps Yuzi did too. Before my departure, she appeared at the mansion gate, dismissed the attendants behind her, approached and said in a low voice, I didn't want things to come to this, but I have no way back. Though she spoke of helplessness, paired with her lofty demeanor, it sounded more like a victory speech. Things have come to this, why put on such a pretense? You have no way back, but do I? This world is never kind to women after all. I met her gaze and said in a low voice. She reminisced about the past and laughed self-deprecatingly. If not for the sudden misfortune that befell the Shi family, how would I have fallen to such a state? On the eve of the Shi family's imprisonment, you went to see Lu Fengxi. At that time, the Shi family was on the verge of collapse, while he was a rising star in the court. In the past, you only saw him as a dull scholar, teasing and mocking him. Yet at that moment you pledged your affections to him, treating him as your last lifeline. Your scheming started from then, so don't put on an act in front of me. Seeing me expose her so bluntly, she was no longer willing to pretend to lament the fickleness of fate. Instead, she stared at me and said carelessly, "Then what about you? Do you have any resentment? When you married him, his foundation was unstable, but now he holds a high position with a bright future ahead. Then should I congratulate you for reaping what others have sown when he was a nobody? You trampled on his sincere heart and discarded it like worn-out shoes. When he rose to prominence, you stayed by his side, enjoying wealth and glory. It seems the proud, talented lady of the Shi family, who thought so highly of herself, already died in the Yuding Bureau. Years of servitude have worn away your pride." My words were ice cold, and I had no intention of sparing her dignity. Her expression changed drastically, instantly turning gloomy. The Shi family was a pain she couldn't mention, and her days as a slave in the Yuding Bureau were her shame. Her cold gaze pierced toward me, her tone unfriendly. "You are right, I've lost everything. Now, even if I have to resort to any means necessary, I will take everything back one by one, starting with you." I looked at her crazed appearance and turned to board the carriage. When Lu Fengxi learns the truth someday, it'll be quite a show. After I returned to the Jiang family, Mother got so angry she fell ill. My younger brother Jiang Chen was dispatched to Linzhou as an official and wasn't in the capital. Ever since Father passed away from illness, Mother has been eating vegetarian and praying to Buddha year-round, rarely managing household affairs. Now the one in charge of the household is my sister-in-law, Shui Qingyao. When she heard I had returned home after a divorce, her eyes were full of disdain. She immediately sneered. The Zhang family is a scholarly household, where women are strictly educated. Nothing like this has ever happened before. What on earth did elder sister do wrong to anger Lord Lu? Such malicious words really shouldn't have come from her mouth. I held my teacup, gently skimming off the foam, and said in a low voice, "Must it only be the woman's fault?" The Lu family was going to hold a wedding again. This was expected, but I didn't think it would be so soon. Everyone in the capital knew that the minister abandoned his wife to welcome a new one, but those strange looks and discussions didn't dare to be directed at Lu Fengxi. The gossip could only be borne by me after I returned to the manor. Shui Qingyao's attitude was acceptable at first, but later she became increasingly passive-aggressive. My courtyard was often missing this or that. Every time I sent a maid to ask, she'd always get snapped at and had to spend some silver to get things done. Mother hadn't managed affairs for a long time. Who knows how many batches of maids and servants in this manor had been replaced. All of them were Shui Qingyao's trusted people. The affairs and people in the manor are vastly different from when I was unmarried. They only recognize the current mistress of the house. My personal maid Lanyue has been given a hard time multiple times, and those old servants have said many nasty things to her. I thought she was only making things difficult over these small matters, but I never expected her to actually urge Mother to find me another family to marry into. I had just arrived outside Mother's courtyard when I heard her voice. "Elder sister is still young. She really shouldn't waste her years at home. We should find her another family. If she can't be a first wife, being a second wife is also acceptable. Granny Zhang has been a matchmaker for half her life. I specifically asked her to pick out a few good families. Why don't we?" I pushed the door open and entered, saying coldly, "Why don't we let me see just what kind of good families these are?" My sudden appearance made the smile on her face freeze. She could only stammer, "Elder sister, marriage has always been decided by parents." Did I not follow my parents' orders and the matchmaker's words back then? At those words, her expression turned somewhat ugly, and even Mother lowered her eyes. "Go on then, I'd like to see just what kind of good families these are." I leisurely took a seat, my eyes glancing sideways at her. She hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "The head of the Gu family, the wealthiest in Guzhou, lost his first wife to illness and wishes to remarry. The Gu family has immense wealth, and it is far from the capital. No one there knows of elder sister's past. It is the most suitable match." I raised my eyes to look at her, but she still put on an act of doing this for my own good. I mocked her. The head of the Gu family is old enough to be your father. Right. This is what you call a good family. She hurriedly changed her words. Then, the eldest son of the Yin family in Ningyang, 3 years older than sister, from a family of officials for generations, he definitely won't disgrace sister. I had managed the household affairs of the Lu family for many years, handling various connections for Lu Fangji, well informed about everything. I wasn't some woman who stayed in the inner chambers knowing nothing of the world. Did she really think she could fool me on these matters? The eldest son of the Yin family has a congenital disability and can barely walk. They've searched for miracle doctors for years, but found no cure. He is now an abandoned son of the family. This is the good match you painstakingly found for me. Shi Qingyao was obviously a bit guilty. She hadn't expected me to know the backgrounds of these people so clearly. Mother seemed to see through her little schemes and scolded her thoroughly, then said, Tan Yin is a daughter of the Jiang family. As long as I am alive, those petty schemes against her better be put to rest. Mother's scolding made Shu Qingyao behave a bit more. But Mother Lu came to visit at this time. During my days in the Lu family, she had never mistreated me. When she was young, she also came from a wealthy family. But unfortunately, the family later declined. After marriage, she devoted herself to supporting her husband and raising their son, hoping Lu Fangxi would succeed through the imperial examinations. After we got married, she often stayed at the villa in the suburbs of the capital and no longer interfered with household matters. There was quite a bit of helplessness in her eyes, and she only said softly, Fangxi has wronged you, but I hope you won't resent him. I didn't respond. Whether to resent or not isn't something that can be brushed aside with just a few words, she sighed, then said, he walked from humble beginnings to his current position, and little of his original heart remains. That girl from the Shi family happens to be his obsession from back then. During the flower festival of the 7th year of Qinghe, he was humiliated and ostracized, depressed and unfulfilled. He once heard a melody beneath Dengyun Tower, played by that Shi family girl. That one piece unraveled the gloom and bitterness in his heart, awakening his spirit. He regarded her as a kindred soul and tried every means just to see her once. That was one of the rare moments of joy I've ever seen from him. I furrowed my brows slightly. The flower festival of the 7th year of Qinghe, a melody atop Dengyun Tower. After old Madame Lu left, Lan Yue widened her eyes and pressed me. During the flower festival of the 7th year of Qinghe, wasn't it you, miss, who played the chin atop Dengyun Tower? That day you snuck out of the manor and even had the Shi family girl cover for you. The flower festival of the 7th year of Qinghe. A melody played in harmony atop Dengyun Tower. Is this the origin of his lingering attachment to Shi Yuzi? But that day was precisely when I joyfully received the famous Qin, Fengwu. The news of Lu Fangxi marrying Shi Yuzi spread throughout the court and beyond. Amidst the gossip of the world, I became the abandoned wife of the Lu family. I heard that to prepare for this grand wedding, Lu Fangxi specially ordered 18 embroiderers from Jiangnian to rush make the wedding dress for Shi Yuzi. Her bridal gown would be embroidered using 18 different techniques, dazzling and magnificent. Though I was already at the center of the storm, I had no choice but to visit the Lu residence again. It was because the steward sent word that Lan Yue had trespassed into the Lu residence, and Lu Fangxi ordered her to be beaten to death with sticks. When I rushed there, blood was already seeping through Lan Yue's waist, yet she still cried out again and again. Young master, the one who played the chin at Dengyun Tower during the flower festival that year wasn't Miss Shi, but my young lady. Miss Shi isn't the person you are looking for at all. Her tearful pleas cut through me like a knife. She was badly injured. I threw myself in front of her to shield her, and the paddle raised high couldn't stop in time. I took the blows myself. A look of gravity and coldness flashed across Shi Yuzi's face. She stared intently at Lu Fangxi, scrutinizing the changes in his expression. Lan Yue also looked at Lu Fangxi with hope, but his face showed only indifference. He sneered. Absurd. That day I saw Yuzi walk down from Dengyun Tower with my own eyes. How could I be mistaken? It is you two, master and servant, who harbor ill intentions, trying to falsely claim credit. Do you think such despicable tricks can make me change my mind? He didn't believe it. Those cold words shattered Lan Yue's hope inch by inch and completely crushed whatever bond remained between him and me as husband and wife. He pointed his finger at me and spoke again. Especially you, thinking you can replace Yu Zi after learning music for just a few days. A clumsy imitation, utterly laughable. How could you ever compare to her? Take your people and get lost. Lu Fangxi flung his sleeves and left. His unwavering trust and favoritism made all the tension on Shi Yuzi's face fade away completely. She looked at me without fear and said slowly, "What a loyal servant. Too bad he doesn't believe you." I helped the badly wounded Lanyue out of the Lu residence. Seeing the bloodstains on her dress, an unprecedented anger lingered in my heart, as if hatred was spreading. Only now did I finally see Lu Fengqi's cold and hard heart. If I had arrived even a moment later, perhaps Lanyue would have met a terrible fate today. I brought her back to the Jiang residence. But what greeted us was Shui Qingyao's arrogant and contemptuous face. They say a day as husband and wife means 100 days of grace, yet this Lord Lu doesn't seem to care one bit. People used to say you were clever, elder sister, but aren't you still just an abandoned wife now? Clearly, cleverness is useless. If you want to stay at home in the future, it is not impossible. You just need to hand over all the valuables you brought back from the Lu family to the treasury. That way, your daily necessities will be provided on time. After all, the days ahead are long, and we don't have that much silver to support idle people. She said this, while fiddling with the freshly dyed nail polish on her fingernails. Can't hold back so soon. Already starting to covet openly, the servant women behind Shui Qingyao blocked the way. She sneered mockingly. "Do you still think you are Madame Lu, living under someone else's roof from now on? You'd better drop those airs of yours. If you don't hand it over today, you can't enter." I looked at Lanyue struggling to endure the pain and said coldly, "Move asides." But those servant women and old maids at Shui Qingyao's signal aggressively blocked the way. Lanyue's wound needed to be treated as soon as possible. This wasn't the time to continue the standoff, so I supported Lanyue and walked towards the exit. And her sharp voice immediately rang out. "If you walk out today, it means you are voluntarily leaving the Jiang family. From now on, don't even think about setting foot in the Jiang family again." My footsteps faltered slightly, yet I didn't look back. Behind me, the gates of the Jiang residence slammed shut. The Jiang family was never a place for me to stay long. Lanyue and I settled temporarily at an inn. I found a doctor to treat her, and after resting for many days, she finally showed some improvement. But her eyes were full of worry as she said, "Miss has left the Jiang family. What will we do from now on?" I sat by the window all night, thinking about the answer. Even if Mother wanted to protect me, staying in the Jiang family as a dependent was not a long-term solution, and would only cause discord and frequent conflicts at home. Perhaps, only by letting go of the past, can there be a new beginning. Lanyue, what has abandoned me cannot be kept. From now on, neither the Lu family nor the Jiang family can trap me anymore. She still didn't understand what I meant until we got on the carriage heading south. The businesses and personnel I took from the Lu family, I didn't bring back to the Jiang family, but arranged them separately instead. This is what Shui Qingyao has been pressing me step by step to obtain. The day I left the capital, I happened to see the eye-catching festive red of the Lu family, with gongs and drums making a deafening noise, extremely lively, as noble families of the capital competed to offer their congratulations. Such liveliness seemed to make my departure look even more pathetic in contrast. We traveled south, all the way, entering Yunzhou territory. Yunzhou borders the sea, overlooking Dongluo in the distance. I led her into a residence, with the large characters, Jiang residence, written on the plaque above the entrance. Maidservants and servants lined up on both sides, heads bowed respectfully, while the steward came forward to greet us with a beaming smile. Lanyue looked bewildered and confused, turning to me at a loss. I held her hand and walked in slowly. This will be our new home, where we'll never be at anyone's mercy again. She was both shocked and delighted, so excited that she didn't know what to say. It took a whole day before she finally accepted this huge shock. She couldn't believe that I was actually the person behind the Shufeng Hall of the Jiang family in Yunzhou. Lanyue couldn't read, and she was only responsible for delivering the letters back and forth, never knowing their contents. Now that she suddenly learned the truth, she naturally needed time to accept it. Everyone knows that the Jiang family of Yunzhou is a merchant household. They established Dufeng Hall several years ago and made their fortune through shipping and maritime trade. The family head has never shown their face, and the Grand Steward Han Yi has always handled affairs in the foreground. Naturally, these are hard to connect with me. When Han Yi appeared before us, Lanyue's face was full of pleasant surprise as she exclaimed excitedly, "Isn't this the young man you gave a large sum of money to back then?" I chuckled softly. "Not a young man," Han Yi continued. "For convenience in handling matters, I usually dress as a man. When I gave her that large sum back then, it was initially just out of appreciation for talent, and later I hoped she could work for me. Several years ago, When I was managing the Liu family's businesses, I had already noticed Yunzhou's maritime shipping advantages. I couldn't miss such a good opportunity, which is why Shufeng Hall came to exist. But to extensively develop maritime trade routes, one must have excellent shipbuilding skills to support cargo transportation. And Han Yi had quite a talent for shipbuilding. After she was abandoned by her family, I gave her a place to stay and let her fully display her abilities. But back then, I only thought of adding more support for Lu Fangxi. I had planned to wait until there were some results before having him propose the matter of maritime trade routes to the court. Who would have thought it would now become my own escape route? After everyone withdrew, Han Yi whispered in my ear, Shufeng Hall's ships go out to sea for trade and have been quite profitable. This is already well known throughout Yunzhou. Now various powerful merchants are eyeing us covetously and have joined forces to suppress us. What should we do next? My fingers lightly tapped the table as I said softly, Shufeng Hall has become the dominant force in the shipping industry, which has already threatened their interests. However, this is exactly the situation I wanted to see. In 10 days, I'll host a banquet and personally meet with them. The news spread quickly. The never-before-seen head of the Zhang family had suddenly appeared and would be hosting a banquet in 10 days to invite all the wealthy merchants of Yunzhou to discuss maritime trade matters. For a moment, everyone was confused. Those wealthy merchants initially didn't take maritime trade seriously. But now, with all the squeezing and suppression, everyone was wary of it. I hosted the banquet at Qinghui Tower. Tea and refreshments were prepared, but those people were late in arriving. Han Yi and I calmly sipped our tea. But Lan Yue was a bit anxious, saying uneasily, Miss, could this banquet end up being a no-show? If so, I am afraid it will become a laughingstock in Yunzhou's business circles. I reassured her, don't worry, they're the ones who should be anxious. Since they've been eyeing maritime shipping covetously, how could they not come? They just want to delay and give us a show of force. But no matter how long they drag it out, they'll come eventually, Han Yi added. Just the fact that the hidden head of the Zhang family is appearing for the first time is enough to make them restless, let alone when it involves trade matters. As the words fell, an announcement came from outside the door. Boss Su of Jingsu Pavilion has arrived. Boss Chen of Ningyu Workshop has arrived. Master Gu of Jiying Alley has arrived. Han Yi and I exchanged a smile. They finally came after all. Someone took the lead and challenged. I heard that the Zhang family head is appearing for the first time to discuss the maritime trade routes with us, so why haven't they shown up yet, sending just a few young girls to deal with us? Could it be that you look down on us? Others chimed in upon hearing this, their faces full of displeasure. I stood at a high place, my eyes slightly narrowed, and said carelessly, What, can't the head of the Zhang family be a woman? As soon as these words fell, everyone looked at each other in dismay, then whispered among themselves, discussions breaking out everywhere. Clearly, they had never expected that the Zhang family head who never showed their face would be a woman. A hint of arrogance flashed in their eyes. And someone said rather rudely, the great Ying dynasty once had a female prime minister in the past, so the customs are open, encouraging women to do business and leave their homes. But women are ultimately short-sighted, and few can achieve anything. Staying in the inner quarters is their proper duty. Is that so? But my Zhang family's Jufeng Hall is run by women. Since you all look down on women doing business so much, then please leave. The business partners that Zhang family shipping wants to select aren't just anyone. As soon as my words fell, they heard my displeasure. Simone hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Boss Mo's words were unpleasant. Please don't take offense, family head Zhang. Since we could come here, we naturally came with sincerity. We just wonder what guidance family head Zhang has for us. I raised my eyes to look at the crowd and said in a deep voice, Jufeng Hall has achieved today's results with just a few years of accumulation, and everyone here has witnessed it. I know what you are all thinking. Rather than trying to block the Zhang family's path, why not join us in developing maritime trade routes? Jufeng Hall's cargo ships can carry your silk, brocade, tea, and porcelain across the seas to sell in Dongluo, and in return bring back their pearls, coral, and agate. Everyone's eyes lit up for a moment, seemingly eager to try, yet they were wary of each other, their gazes all sizing up the reactions of those around them. I watched leisurely from the side, observing the desire for money gradually surfacing in their eyes, seeing that they couldn't reach a consensus. I spoke loudly. I can offer everyone a small trial for a period of 3 months. Those who are willing may join Jufeng Hall's maritime trade fleet. During this time, the Zhang family won't take a single coin. After 3 months, you can make your final judgment. Those merchants all wore solemn expressions, looking thoughtful. Afterward, they hurried away one by one, probably to discuss their strategies. Han Yi watched their hurried manner and couldn't help but chuckle. The sea trade route is quite tempting to them, each one eager to get a piece of the pie. Yet, when we proactively invite them to participate today, they start suspecting there is some trap in this. This move both resolves the Jiang family's current predicament of being squeezed out and allows the Jiang family to advance further. They probably never expected you to have such boldness. Those wealthy merchants think I want to monopolize it. Think I am afraid to let them have a share. Too bad. I am going to do the opposite. From now on, you'll have your hands full. Starting the next day, people began visiting one after another. From that day on, there were always some people watching around the Jiang family's entrance, recording the comings and goings. I didn't stop them. The remaining people are still watching and waiting. They desperately want to know the situation. Han Yi had already compiled the list of merchants and goods for the first voyage, and submitted it for my review. Once.F, the goods are loaded onto the ships. Will depart in 3 days. Just this one trip would take over a month for the round journey. When the first batch of seafaring merchants returned successfully, merchants lined up outside Jufeng Hall. Merchants from all over gathered in the tea houses and taverns of Yunzhou City. Speaking of what they saw and heard on this trip, they talked about the rare treasures in the Eastern Low Kingdom, but the people there had never seen silk, fabrics, tea, porcelain and such from here. They were very curious about these things, and wealthy families were willing to pay handsomely for them. The street rumors spread wider, and more merchants couldn't sit still. In the blink of an eye, the 3-month deadline had arrived. Many wealthy merchants in Yunzhou City had gathered at Jufeng Hall to express their sincerity for cooperation. Looking at the eager joy on everyone's faces, I picked up my tea, slowly skimmed off the foam, and said lightly, "It is better for everyone to profit than just one." Regarding the maritime trade, I have no selfish intentions. If everyone can participate, I naturally welcome it. However, the Jiang family has its own rules. From now on, business at sea must follow my rules. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Then someone anxiously jumped up and said indignantly, "I was wondering why you would be so kind-hearted. Turns out, your ambitions are huge. You want to secure the top position in Yunzhou's business circle. Won't we all have to live at your mercy from now on?" I unhurriedly set down my teacup and said indifferently, "You can also choose not to do this business." As soon as the words fell, the other party's arrogance immediately weakened. When I was at the Lu residence, I often helped Lu Fengqi manage the exchange of interests in official circles. The major families were deeply intertwined, and managing connections in officialdom was far more complicated than this. Now dealing with just these merchants was much easier, and his few shouts couldn't intimidate me at all. The others, seeing my cold attitude and fearing I might change my mind and make them lose their money-making opportunity, softened their tone. Harmony brings wealth. Master Jiang bringing us along is already the utmost kindness. Going to sea must rely on the Jiang family's cargo ships and merchant fleet, so naturally we should listen to Master Jiang. Yes, we have no objections to this. Everyone quickly chimed in agreement. I raised my brows slightly and spoke clearly. If you've all made up your minds, then await the good news. The contract details will be announced in a few days. Once no one else was around, Han Yi finally spoke in a low voice. Is the family head involving all these wealthy merchants to completely control the lifeline of the maritime trade routes? Yes, only by doing so can Jufeng Hall truly establish itself in Yunzhou, irreplaceable and untouchable. As I slowly explained, a hint of excitement surfaced in Han Yi's eyes. Jufeng Hall had accumulated wealth over the years, originally relying on shipping to build its fortune, but midway it suffered constant suppression, with various families joining forces to pressure it. Now, by bringing all the merchants together to share profits, naturally no one would oppose it anymore. And since the maritime trade routes must rely on the Jiang family's ships and merchant escorts for protection, they would be at our mercy, but they couldn't bear to give up the enormous profits from the sea routes. So they would inevitably bow their heads and follow the Jiang family's rules. From then on, the Jiang family could control the lifeline of the maritime trade routes and completely grasp the voice of Yunzhou's business world. The sea routes would also grow in influence with those people's participation. Going to sea requires the Jiang family's cargo ships and their experienced merchant escorts for protection, and that would be a massive source of income. Once the contract details were announced, visitors came in an endless stream, with numerous Yunzhou merchants participating. The Jiang family swept away the miserable state of being jointly suppressed and squeezed out before. Maritime trade gradually got on track, and Yunzhou merchants rose to fame. Merchants from the Eastern Low Kingdom often traveled and traded alongside Yunzhou caravans. Time flew by, and 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. The Zhang family had gradually become a legendary name on the seas. I seemed to have forgotten my years in the capital. When I thought about it carefully, it felt like a lifetime ago, but someone's arrival made me recall those old days in the capital once again. Yunzhou's maritime trade had gained widespread fame, and private sea trade had also caught the court's attention. The court encouraged maritime trade and intended to establish an office in Yunzhou, hoping to open trade with Eastern Lo. They specially dispatched a court minister to inspect and manage affairs. But I never expected that the one sent would be Lu Fengqi. He summoned the merchants of Yunzhou for a meeting at the prefecture office. I arrived late. When the man seated high in the hall saw me, his expression completely froze, filled with astonishment. The legendary figure of the seas that everyone speaks of. How could it be you? Perhaps in his eyes, I was just that ignorant woman with narrow views, content to stay in the inner quarters. Or perhaps, in his mind, after our divorce, I was only fit to be a pitiful self-loathing woman, too ashamed to show her face. Was it really that surprising? I sat down quite at ease and asked. Everyone knows the Zhang family of Yunzhou built their fortune through shipping and maritime trade, and that the head of the family is a woman, so why couldn't it be me? He realized his loss of composure and barely managed to calm himself, but his gaze still couldn't help but steal glances in my direction. His visit was meant to send a warning, hoping that all the families would cooperate with him. He sat high in the hall, making his intentions clear. The Zhang family is the foremost merchant house in Yunzhou, so my attitude represents theirs as well. Everyone exchanged glances, unsure why he acted this way, but from those few words, they guessed that he and I were old acquaintances. Seeing that my stance remained unclear, everyone in the hall only offered polite pleasantries. Lu Fengqi saw the crux of the problem at a glance. After that, I shut my doors to visitors for many days. Yet he still came every day, standing under the corridor for a long time. 5 days later, the gates of the Jiang residence opened wide to welcome him in. I sat upright in the main seat, while he walked slowly up from below the steps, standing with his hands behind his back, his gaze slightly deep. He spoke first. I never thought that when we met again, it would be under such circumstances. Along my journey, I heard them discussing Shufeng Hall's maritime trade, speaking of the Jiang family head's legends at sea. I didn't respond to his words. Seeing my cold attitude, he wasn't angered either, and spoke frankly. I came here by imperial decree. You should know the purpose of my visit. His Majesty hopes that Dayang and the Eastern Loa Kingdom can establish trade relations and set up a maritime affairs bureau to handle this matter. This is a great plan that benefits both the nation and its people. The legend of the Zhang family's sea routes is known to all. I hope you and I can set aside past grievances, consider the bigger picture, and work together to make this happen. You've lowered yourself to wait outside the manor day after day. Did you think I would obstruct this matter? I set down my teacup, gazing directly at him with scrutiny and assessment. He hesitated, and after a long pause finally said, I just didn't want you to disregard national interests and the people's livelihood over personal grudges. My hand holding the teacup paused slightly, so that is what he thought. I scoffed. In your eyes, am I such a petty person who ignores the bigger picture? If so, why did you even come? Please leave. I misspoke. That is not what I meant, he hastily explained. Lu Fengqi, you underestimate me. If I were consumed by personal grudges and ignored the bigger picture, I wouldn't have risen to lead Yunzhou's maritime trade. Nor could I have earned the heartfelt respect of merchants from all regions. Today, no matter who is sent to Yunzhou, I will treat them equally and help the court establish trade between our two nations. This is not only for the country, but also for myself. If the two nations establish trade, and the court supports maritime commerce, Shufeng Hall will surely surpass its former glory, no longer confined to Yunzhou alone. His gaze turned contemplative, and after a long while, he said softly, You are very different from before. Perhaps it is not that I am different from before, but that only now have you truly started to see me for who I am. As for assisting with the Maritime Trade Office and establishing commerce, the Zhang family will fully cooperate. I spoke in a deep voice. Thank you. His voice paused slightly, as if he wanted to say something but held back. If there is nothing else, please return, Lord Lu. All subsequent matters will be handled by Han Yi. My voice was cold, unwilling to have further dealings with him. His brows furrowed slightly, his gaze fixed intently on me, and he spoke with a sense of loss. Do you reject seeing me this much? You won't even say a single extra word. from the moment the divorce papers were signed. You and I should naturally draw clear boundaries. Hearing this, his expression shifted several times before finally turning dim. When the time is right, I will explain everything to you in detail. A trace of struggle and helplessness flashed in the depths of his eyes. The news of the Minister of State's personal visit spread like wildfire, and everyone knew the court attached great importance to maritime trade this time, and my attitude represented the attitude of all maritime merchants in Yunzhou, who would naturally cooperate fully, reducing half the troubles of his trip. He stayed at the prefecture from then on, but some people also dug up our past. When rumors swept through once again, everyone was in an uproar. People were shocked that the current richest person in Yunzhou, the legend of the seas, was actually the abandoned wife of the Liu family. Lanyue and Hanyi worried I would be upset by the rumors, and forbade anyone in the courtyard from discussing past matters. But having come this far, how could I still fear rumors? Amidst all the clamor, Lu Fengqi disappeared without a trace, as if he had quietly left Yunzhou. This trip, he came with great fanfare, yet left without a trace, and no one knew what secrets were hidden behind it all. That day, his gaze was extremely complicated, as if too many words were buried deep in his heart, too obscure to speak. A month later, news arrived. Prince Qi had been recruiting private soldiers and raising secret guards in his fief Zhejiu, intending to usurp the throne. The evidence was irrefutable, and he had already been slain by the sword of Secretary General Lu Fengqi. I suddenly understood. Lu Fengqi's grand arrival, under imperial orders, was merely a diversion. The true destination of his journey was not Yunzhou, but Zizhou, which bordered Yunzhou. His blade was aimed at Prince Qi, who had been biding his time. Passing through Yunzhou was nothing but a ruse. It was only to make Prince Qi lower his guard, catching him completely off guard, and the unexpected scandalous rumors between him and me were also exploited by him, becoming his advantage. What was most surprising was that this case was connected to the old Shi family case. The truth was now clear. The entire Shi family were Prince Qi's followers. Back then, they had sacrificed the lesser to save the greater, taking the fall for Prince Qi's crimes of bribery and forming factions, allowing Prince Qi to stay out of it and preserve himself. But the key person who enabled Lu Fengqi to find evidence and confirm Prince Qi's treason was actually Shi Yuzi. During her years as a slave in the Yuding Bureau, she had always been under Prince Qi's protection. After leaving the Yuding Bureau, she had been secretly colluding with Prince Qi to pass information. I seemed to understand what she meant that day, when she said she would take back everything she had lost. She never forgot the hatred and enmity of the Shi family. Staying by Lu Fengqi's side was only to become the eyes and ears of the Prince of Qi, waiting for the right moment to strike. And Lu Fengqi knew all along. He knew about Shi Yuzi's patient scheming, knew her approach had ulterior motives. Yet he chose to turn her scheme against her, chose to go with the flow, allowing such a chess piece to remain by his side. The moonlight outside the window pierced through the branches and leaves, the dappled shadows pale and bleak like frost. My hands clenched tightly in my sleeves. The room was clearly warm, yet I felt as if I had fallen into an icy abyss, my limbs growing cold. His divorce from me, his step-by-step coercion, was all just to make this act more convincing. Convincing enough to make Shi Yuzi believe without doubt and lower her guard. That nonsense about finding a kindred spirit through a song at Dengyun Tower, who exactly was he deceiving? That day when he severely wounded Lanyue and humiliated her with his words, I thought he had truly been deceived by Shi Yuzi. Now, it seems, from beginning to end, he was just putting on an act. All to make Shi Yuzi believe that because of that one song, he was deeply and unforgettably in love with her. The two of them, each harboring their own schemes, competing against each other, until today, to consolidate his power and position, he could give up anything. Our marriage, in the end, I was merely a sacrifice in his schemes. On this expedition, he slew the treasonous minister and deserves the highest merit. Throughout the court and beyond, all praised him, saying he was both brave and resourceful, having schemed for years to eliminate the traitor, catching the enemy in his own trap, and wiping out Prince Qi's entire faction in one sweep. His Majesty urgently summoned him back to the capital and bestowed lavish rewards upon him, making him the talk of the town for a time. It so happened that envoys from various nations had gathered in the capital to present their credentials and discuss matters of border trade. His Majesty would host a banquet at Zhaoyang Terrace and issued a decree summoning me to the capital to attend. Lanyue couldn't help but worry for me. Afraid that there were too many people in the capital who bore ill will toward me, I glanced at her and said softly, Times are different now. I have my own foundation to stand on. Besides, the envoys from Dongluo have already arrived in the capital. His Majesty needs capable people right now, and will naturally treat me with courtesy. Even if past matters are dug up, what of it? Now that I've established myself independently in Yunzhou with deep roots, who would dare touch me? I ordered Lanyue to pack our belongings and set off as soon as possible. Returning to the imperial capital once more, looking closely at the prosperity beneath the sun of heaven's feet, it felt like a lifetime had passed. The talk of the streets and alleys was all about Lu Fengqi's achievements in slaying Prince Qi and eliminating the rebel faction. I heard that Shi Yuzi had already been thrown into prison and would be executed along with the remaining conspirators after autumn. This time upon returning, my state of mind was vastly different. Xu Qingyao sent people to welcome me early in the morning, but I did not return to the Zhang residence. Instead, I had arranged for a separate manner. They hurriedly ran to my new residence, only to see her face full of smiles, doing her utmost to ingratiate herself. In the past, everyone said elder sister was clever and quite talented. If you were a man, you would surely have great achievements, and now it has truly come to pass. Even in the capital, I heard of elder sister's great reputation. Everyone praises that Yunzhou has produced a remarkable woman who opened up the maritime trade routes, made Yunzhou's wealthy merchants bow their heads, and is called a legend of the seas. I never expected it was elder sister. Now you've even gained His Majesty's favor, summoning you to the palace for the Four Nations banquet. What an extreme honor. Lord Lu has also rendered great merit. If you two were to reconcile, wouldn't that be joy upon joy? First arrogant, then humble, truly an eye-opener. Throw her out. I spoke without mercy, and the servants directly drove her out. At the Four Nations banquet, envoys gathered together. My seat had been specially arranged, with a eunuch to guide me. After I took my seat, the surrounding gazes immediately gathered over. Some examined me curiously, some whispered among themselves, and some smiled and nodded in acknowledgement. The grand banquet began. Nothing more than polite pleasantries between the emperor and the envoys, with everyone chiming in accordingly. When the envoy from Dongluo mentioned the maritime trade route and bilateral commerce between the two nations, the emperor's gaze turned toward me as he declared in a clear voice, as everyone knows, the Zhufeng Hall of Yunzhou excels in shipbuilding and has led Yunzhou merchant fleets to sea multiple times, pioneering maritime trade routes. Now that the great Ying dynasty and Dongluo are establishing maritime trade, this is an excellent strategy that benefits both the nation and its people. I am naturally pleased to see it come to fruition. Housemaster Zhang has rendered great service, and I shall reward her handsomely. In an instant, gazes of all kinds fell upon me. I rose and bowed respectfully. Thank you, Your Majesty. With these words, he was acknowledging my identity. Standing here now, I was not someone's daughter, nor someone's wife. I was simply myself, Zhang Tanyin, who single-handedly established Yunzhou's Zhufeng Hall and opened up maritime trade routes. Now that the maritime trade route had been pioneered and bilateral commerce established, this was precisely when the Zhang family was indispensable. His Majesty didn't mind adding a few more honors to my name, using it as a warning to everyone. Back then, I was cast out by the Lu family, and when I returned to the Zhang family, Shui Qingyao threw me out the door. Now that I've returned, I am no longer someone they can humiliate at will. To fully establish the maritime trade route between the great Ying dynasty and Dongluo, they needed to rely on the Zhang family's exceptional shipbuilding skills, and also needed to draw upon the maritime experience the Zhang family had accumulated over many years. After all, sea routes are perilous, and weather is unpredictable. Everyone knows that the Zhang family of Yunzhou possesses the most advanced shipbuilding techniques. A crew of sailors they personally trained who are familiar with maritime conditions, as well as experienced maritime merchant fleets that have ventured out to sea multiple times. They are fluent in the language and writing of the Eastern Lol Kingdom and well-versed in local trading rules, and this was not something that could be achieved overnight. During the banquet, cups clinked and toasts were exchanged, with envoys from all sides gathered together. A spirit of competition unexpectedly arose. Among those accompanying the Western Yue Kingdom, there was one exceptionally skilled in music, who offered a piece to liven the atmosphere. Afterward, they mentioned that the great Ying dynasty was full of talented people, and expressed hope to exchange pointers. The emperor naturally would not refuse such a request, yet the one who spoke actually pointed at me. I slightly raised my gaze, looking into the distance. then rose composedly and said, "Since the envoy has made the request, how could Tanyan possibly refuse?" Meeting gazes of all kinds, I sat before the table, my hand gently brushing over the body of the chin, my eyes slightly lowered, as my fingertips plucked the strings. The melody poured forth. As my fingers quickened, the tone shifted abruptly. After so many years, playing this piece again, let it serve as a conclusion. The fate tied by this song shall naturally end with it as well. Amidst the admiring gazes of the crowd, only one person's expression changed drastically. The envoy inquired, "I have never heard this piece before. What is it called? Who composed it?" She played Song of the East Wind, the same piece that made him fall in love years ago, and watched him realize she was the one who played it at Dengyan Tower, not Shiyuzi. His wine pot crashed, his composure shattered. For years he worshipped the wrong woman, while his actual wife stood right there, the poetic justice. She revealed the truth at the Four Nations banquet, in front of everyone, after she'd already built an empire without him. That is not revenge, that is legacy. I smiled lightly and said, "It is called Song of the East Wind, composed by my own hand." Hearing this, Lu Fangxi accidentally knocked over the wine pot, frightening the maidservant beside him into kneeling repeatedly to beg for mercy. His gaze passed over everyone, a nameless emotion rising within, deeply guarded, staring intently at me, yet accompanied by a hint of nervousness and fear. His sudden loss of composure attracted everyone's attention. His Majesty came to the rescue by saying the flowers in Jinhua Garden were in full bloom, and everyone followed to admire them. I found a pavilion to sit down, but unexpectedly Lu Fangxi followed closely behind. His expression was full of unease, his voice trembling slightly as he said, "Everything has been decided. Are you willing to hear my explanation?" I knew what he wanted to say, but I raised my head and spoke indifferently. "Number, you and I are already strangers. Your choices and decisions no longer need to be explained to me." My cold response completely enraged him. His emotions surged with regret and remorse, and he unconsciously raised his voice. "How can we be strangers? You are the only wife of my life." His voice drew the attention of everyone in the distance. Under all those watchful eyes, his eyes were full of regret, tinged with a faint redness from agitation. Everyone saw the proud and noble minister who held power over the court set aside his pride and lower his head, yet I remained cold and unmoved. I broke free from his entanglement and hurried away. Shiyuzi sent a message from prison through someone. She wanted to see me. When I saw her, she was already in a wretched state, her eyes like a dried-up well, devoid of any ripples. She murmured softly, "It must have been hard for you to still be willing to see me. Every day I spent in the Lu family, I knew those peaceful years were stolen from you. But I had to do it. If I wanted Lu Fangxi to become the sharpest blade of revenge in my hands, I had to grasp his heart and become the one and only by his side. I always thought I had succeeded, thought I could toy with him in the palm of my hand, pass on all that information, let Prince Qi seize the opportunity to accomplish his goals. And the Shi family could also clear their name and restore their honor. But I never expected that he was the one holding the chess pieces all along, deliberately not exposing my false identity, showing me an appearance of deep affection, making me think he truly believed me. Yet in the end, he used me to track Prince Qi's movements and gather evidence of his treason. She had never let go of the Shi family's grudge. In her eyes, Lu Fangxi was merely a tool for revenge. Pitiful how she exhausted all her schemes, only for her grand dream to crumble to nothing in the end. Her tone carried self-mockery, her eyes full of unwillingness. "Back then, I wronged you. If the Shi family hadn't already collapsed, I wouldn't have taken this step. Here, I offer you my apology." The pride in her bones seemed to have never faded. Her many words today were merely to prove to me that everything back then was just her desperate scheme to restore the Shi family, not that the years of hardship in the Yuding Bureau had worn down her spirit. When I left, she was humming softly, her eyes filled with stillness. After I returned, I lay down for a long time but couldn't fall asleep. It wasn't until midnight that I heard a maid report, "Lord Lu has been standing outside the courtyard for half the night. It is pouring rain out there. If he catches ill, what are we to do?" I said angrily. "No one's forcing him to stand there. If he wants to, then let him stand as long as he likes." I fell into a deep sleep, and when I woke the next morning, the rain had stopped, but he still hadn't left. The maid relayed, "Lord Lu said he just wants to give you an explanation in person." The manor gates opened wide, and Lu Fangxi came toward me. When he saw me, he seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The maid served hot tea, but he couldn't be bothered to drink it at all. He spoke urgently. I know you were the one who played Song of the East Wind at Dengyan Tower on the flower festival of the 7th year of Qinghe. At first, I thought it was her, but after observing her temperament, she wasn't the open-minded person who could play such a piece. After careful investigation, I learned it was you that day. My subsequent visits to propose marriage were all sincere. Forcing you to divorce was done out of necessity, only to gain her trust. Back then, the Shi family took the blame for Prince Qi, allowing him to be spared, but his wolfish ambitions eventually became a disaster. It just so happened that Shi Yuzi deliberately impersonated you, wanting to become a chess piece lurking by my side. Everything that followed was just a trap set by His Majesty and me to follow the vine and uproot Prince Qi's entire faction. In the years after our marriage, he never mentioned that piece to me. Later, when Shi Yuzi entered the residence, that piece instead became a weapon to hurt me. His cold face when he subjected Lanyue to severe punishment surfaced before my eyes. That day, blood had soaked through her clothes, yet his explanation now seemed so dismissive. This might have been the best breakthrough to eliminate Prince Qi. But it was never the only choice. Lord Lu, if you wish to discuss matters of state with me, your achievements are outstanding and will surely be recorded in history. If you wish to discuss personal grievances with me, then the past has scattered like the wind, and we have no more ties. Hearing me speak like this, his figure wavered, nearly losing his balance. Then, losing his composure, he gripped my wrist tightly, trying his best to lower his voice, a barely audible plea in his tone. What exactly do you want me to do before you are willing to forgive? What he wanted to explain. I had already guessed when the news of Prince Qi's execution arrived. Unfortunately, he forgot that spilled water cannot be gathered back. I glanced at his knuckles, white from gripping so hard, then looked directly into his eyes, and said resoundingly, I understand the choices you made that day. I respect your decision. I admire your schemes, but what you've said cannot be a reason why I must forgive. When you made that choice back then, you should have anticipated this day. Or could it be, you were certain I would come back, so you discarded me without hesitation? My questioning made his gaze waver, unable to face me directly, before his career and power. I was ultimately the one cast aside. No matter how many times it is explained, this is an undeniable fact. I was never his exception. He still stubbornly said, it was all my fault back then, but why won't you give me another chance to make amends? Even if all misunderstandings are cleared and all grievances resolved. The hurt and humiliation from back then were all real. In your heart there is only power and position. In your relentless pursuit, true feelings can be discarded. In your calculations and schemes, no one can become an exception. The finality in my words made his expression change drastically, leaving him flustered and panicked, shattering all his confidence of having everything under control. After a long while, speechless, they fled in panic. The 6th princess requested His Majesty to let me enter the palace to guide her in qin playing. But when I entered the palace, I saw her playing a piece with extreme proficiency. The princess has exceptional talent in music, so why would you need my guidance? She said calmly. It was just an excuse. I simply wanted to see what kind of woman could be called a legend of the seas, and whether she was truly worth the chief secretary lowering himself to desperately win her back. Your Highness has seen for yourself. I am just an ordinary person. I spread my hands, appearing completely at ease. There are busybodies in the capital who have set up gambling pools over this, each placing their bets on whether you will rekindle your relationship with Lord Lu. Lord Lu has already humbled himself to the extreme, only asking for your forgiveness. For someone of his status, this is already remarkable, so everyone in the capital is certain you will reconcile with him. Hearing this, I looked up and smiled. Then what does your Highness think? Her hand brushed over the chin strings. I think not necessarily. I have already requested His Majesty's permission, and will return to Yunzhou soon. Hearing this, a flash of admiration passed through her eyes. After the Four Nations banquet, the Great Ying dynasty and the Eastern Low Kingdom signed a treaty, establishing mutual trade between the two nations, and setting up a maritime affairs office. Although Yunzhou is not as prosperous as the capital, there lies my unfinished endeavors. Jiang Chen was also transferred back to the capital for a position. He waited outside the courtyard for a long time. The moment he saw me, he dropped to his knees with a thud. I've let you suffer, sister. I've come to take you home. After entering the residence, I didn't see Shred Qingyao anywhere. I heard from the servants that Jiang Chen had given her a divorce letter. As for the reasons behind it, I had no desire to ask. Before Mother, I bowed deeply. This journey to Yunzhou. It won't be easy to meet again. I hope Mother takes care of herself. Shu Qingyao's words that day turned out to be surprisingly prophetic. My later choice did indeed sever me from the Jiang family. The Jiang clan of Yunzhou and the Jiang family of the capital each stood on their own, not interfering with one another. One built its legacy on maritime trade, the other on generations of scholarly tradition. In the end, they were never meant to walk the same path. Before my departure, Lu Fangqi stood at the foot of the steps and spoke with difficulty. Is there truly no room for reconciliation? He would never be able to understand how I felt. Before I lowered the carriage curtain, I said calmly, "You are used to seeing men sitting securely on high, while women are like caged birds, tearing each other apart for a bit of favor. You are used to men betraying women in every way, while women remain devoted. You are even more accustomed to men offering a few casual words of regret, and women forgetting their wounds and turning back. You are so used to all of this that you naturally don't know there are people like me in this world. The mud I've stepped through, the pits I've passed, I will never let myself fall into them again." After I finished speaking, he stood there in a daze for a long time. I set off on the road to Yunzhou. There, where the sky is vast and the sea is wide, I would have my own world. He stood there begging for another chance, and she delivered the most brutal truth. You are used to men betraying women while women remain devoted. You are used to offering casual regret and women forgetting their wounds. She didn't just reject him, she educated him on why his apology meant nothing. He thought she'd come crawling back because that is what women always do. She chose her empire instead. The way he stood there, in a daze while she rode away. Cinema. Side story, the news of the secretary's assassination spread throughout the land, shocking everyone. Even I was dazed for a moment, couldn't help but sigh softly. It had finally come to this. 7 years had passed since that grand banquet of the 4 nations. Da Ying and Dong Luo had been trading for years, and the Jiang family of Yunzhou had gained fame far and wide, even overseas. The new emperor had been on the throne for quite some time now. But with a new ruler comes new ministers. I heard Lu Fangqi's days had been difficult. Yet I never imagined he would die just like that. He had rendered great service many times, risen to the highest position among ministers, and held considerable prestige in court. The late emperor had relied heavily on him, but with the new emperor's ascension, his foundation still unstable. Lu Fangqi's power and prestige in court would keep the new emperor awake at night. His achievements had already overshadowed the throne, yet dying so easily didn't seem to match his usual deep scheming and calculating nature. I gathered my thoughts, letting the cool breeze blow on me by the sea. I happened to encounter someone, dressed in a simple blue robe, walking slowly toward me, stopping not far from my side, sighing softly. Someone who once said that my whole life I've been chasing after things, caring only about power and position, weighing gains and losses, willing to cast aside true feelings. Now, it is fitting, drifting through the sea of officialdom, struggling for half a lifetime. I returned still in commoner's clothes. In the end, it was all for nothing. Those words I had said back then, he still remembered. In his tone there seemed to be endless reminiscence and melancholy. The new emperor granted you a grand funeral and posthumous honors. I raised my eyes to look at him. He smiled self-mockingly. Only this way will he feel at ease. From now on, there will be no more Chief Secretary Lu Fangqi in this world. That assassination was arranged by the new emperor, and he chose to fake his death to escape. The new emperor didn't care whether he was truly dead, as long as he was dead in the eyes of the world. That was enough. Perhaps this was also the last tacit understanding between them as ruler and subject. What are your plans for the future? Now that the past was severed and grudges dissolved, it seemed we could still chat casually like old friends of many years. He stood with his hands behind his back, the sea breeze lifting his robes, and said with relief, "Live under a false name, make the world my home." After saying that, he gazed at me for a long while, then turned and left, his retreating figure carrying a hint of desolation. Here is what destroys me about this story. Zhang Tanyin never waited for vindication. While he was playing 4D chess with state secrets, she was building ships and controlling maritime trade routes. When he finally realized she was the one, she'd already become someone who didn't need him to recognize her worth. The tragedy. He thought sacrificing their marriage for political gain was justified because he'd explain later, but she understood something he never could. Some betrayals can't be undone with explanations. He used her as a pawn, then expected gratitude when he revealed the strategy, the satisfaction. She didn't just survive, she thrived, built an empire, became a legend, made the emperor summon her. And when he came crawling back with his "I always knew it was you" speech, she said, too late, and meant it. That ending where he fakes his death, and she is just living her best life by the sea. That is the real victory. She didn't need closure from him. She'd already closed that chapter herself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making them suffer. It is becoming so successful, they realize what they lost, then watching you not care anymore.